Introduction. How it all started. My girlfriend texted me, "I'm going on a soul-searching road trip with my ex in your car." I replied, "Have fun." Immediately after that, I reported the car stolen and sent the GPS coordinates to the highway patrol. At the moment, they were pulled over out in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. Now, my ex is explaining to a Nevada judge why she thought it was okay to take my car with her ex-boyfriend for spiritual searching. The judge was not impressed by spiritual growth as a defense. Backstory: the night she was packing to leave. 3 days ago, I came home from work and found Rachel packing a duffel bag in the bedroom. I assumed she was going to visit her sister or something. Nope. She sat me down and said, "We need to talk," which is never a good sign. She told me she'd been doing a lot of thinking, that our relationship felt stagnant, and that she needed to find herself. Then, she announced she was going on a month-long cross-country road trip to figure things out. I thought, okay, sudden but fine. Then, she revealed who was going with her ex, Jonas. I couldn't believe it at first. She explained they'd been texting as friends, that he was going through his own spiritual awakening, and that they both needed this trip. Everything was strictly platonic about growth, and they planned to take my car. Not her old, unreliable 2009 Honda, but my almost new car. My car, the one in my name that I'm still paying for, which she's not on the insurance for. She said her car wouldn't make the trip, Jonas had no car, and mine was perfect for long miles. Essentially, she needed my car. I felt something go cold inside. I realized that if I argued, she'd get defensive, manipulate, and probably pressure me into agreeing. So I decided to be strategic. I said, "All right, it sounds like you've made your decision." She seemed surprised. She expected more resistance. I said, "I'll think about it overnight. We'll talk in the morning before you leave," and played the calm, mature boyfriend. She relaxed and invited Jonas over that night to plan the route. He came around 10 exactly what I expected. Man bun, flannel, bead bracelets with a smug, "Thanks for being cool" smile. I dryly replied, "Yep, I'm very understanding." They spread maps in the living room, laughing and outlining national parks, deserts, and Pacific coast stops, right in my home. I went to bed listening to them through the door. After they went to bed, I quietly got up, opened my laptop, checked the insurance policy. Rachel wasn't listed. Then I opened the GPS tracker app I'd installed when I bought the car for an insurance discount. The car was in the parking lot, full battery, updates every 5 minutes while moving. I sat and watched the app and quietly laughed to myself. This was going to be interesting. The decisive morning conversation. Next morning, I was up at 5. Rachel came out around 5:30, surprised I was awake. I told her we needed to talk. Calmly and clearly, I said, "I thought it over. I'm not comfortable with you taking my car with Jonas. It's my car, on my registration and insurance. Either take your car or rent one." She said her car wouldn't make it and rentals were expensive. I said, "That's not my problem." She reminded me I'd promised to think about it. I said I had, and my answer was no. She snapped that everything was already planned and Jonas was on his way. I tried to unplan it. She accused me of being controlling and jealous, said that's exactly why she needed this trip, to see if she could be with someone this insecure. She said I could figure that out in a rental. I said, "Rachel, if you take my car without permission, that's theft." She actually laughed. I wouldn't call the cops on my own girlfriend. I didn't reply, I just looked at her. Jonas arrived at 6:00, same look. Man bun, flannel, beads, grateful smile. "Thanks for being so cool." I answered, "I'm not being cool." Rachel ignored me and told him to start loading. He looked uneasy, but began packing their duffels, cooler, camping gear, Jonas's guitar, naturally, and I watched them put everything in my car. I stood there 5 minutes, then went inside, grabbed my phone, and called my insurer. The agent listened, checked the policy. Rachel wasn't listed. He said I needed to report it as stolen immediately, otherwise I wasn't covered. I told him I'd call the police next. I called the non-emergency police line and explained that my girlfriend had taken my car with her ex, despite me explicitly denying permission. The dispatcher asked questions. confirmed she wasn't on the title or insurance, and that I said no. He said they could file it as unauthorized use of a vehicle, took my info and car details, and gave me a case number. I thanked him, reopened the GPS app. The little dot was moving west at 70 miles. I made another coffee and watched. A coworker texted asking about lunch. I declined. I was tracking my girlfriend and her ex stealing my car live. He called laughing, calling it insane. I said I'd watch them drive across the country and later call the cops. He called that cold-blooded. I said they took my car on a romantic-sounding road trip. Fair point. Around noon, Rachel texted a photo from a rest stop with the caption, "Feeling free already." I didn't reply. That evening, they were in a Kansas motel. GPS showed they were parked. Rachel called around 9 p.m., all happy about the drive and their deep conversations. I asked where they were staying and when they'd return. She said she wasn't putting a timeline on it and that I needed to let go of control. I demanded my car back. She said she'd return it when she was done. I insisted. She refused and hung up. I called the police again and asked them to upgrade to a stolen vehicle report. They did and said the plates would be flagged. I slept well that night. The next day, I watched them go through Colorado, stopping at overlooks and cafes. They sent scenic photos. I screenshotted everything. A Colorado State Patrol officer called asking if the vehicle was still missing. I said yes and that I was tracking it by GPS. He asked if I wanted recovery attempted. I said not yet and asked to be notified. He gave me his direct number. That night at a campground, I asked if they slept in separate tents. Rachel admitted they were sharing a tent, but insisted nothing was happening. I told her that was over the line. She called me toxic and hung up. My brother laughed when I told him. He said to keep updating him. When they hit Nevada and stopped at a shabby motel in the middle of nowhere, I looked it up. 6 rooms, 1-star reviews. One mentioned seeing a scorpion the size of a phone. Rachel called around 11 p.m. exhausted and said they'd push for California the next day. When they finally reached the coast, I demanded she bring the car back now. She said she was in the middle of a journey and that I was killing her vibe. I called Nevada Highway Patrol with the exact motel address, vehicle details, and my case number. The dispatcher confirmed the stolen vehicle flag and said they'd send a unit. The Nevada arrest shortly after 1 a.m. A Nevada Highway Patrol officer called and asked me to verify the VIN. It matched. He said they knocked on the room door. 2 people answered and identified as Rachel and Jonas, claiming permission. I said no. I explicitly told Rachel that morning she did not have permission, and I repeatedly demanded the car back. The officer asked if I'd give a written statement. I agreed. Based on my statement as the registered owner, they recovered the vehicle and placed both occupants under arrest for vehicle theft. The vehicle was towed to impound. I paused, then asked, "Both of them?" He replied, "Yes, both occupants are culpable." I said that was fine. My phone exploded with calls and texts from Rachel, Jonas, friends, and family. I didn't respond. I kept watching the GPS until the car moved to an impound lot. Then I went to bed. The next morning, I woke to dozens of messages accusing me of being insane for calling the cops on someone who just wanted to grow. I replied to one friend. Rachel took my car with her ex on a month-long trip after I explicitly told her she couldn't. She refused to return it. I reported it stolen. The friend called me crazy and blocked me. Rachel's sister yelled at me on the phone saying, "She's my girlfriend," to which I said, "Cool." She went quiet. My brother called laughing. This was the best story he'd ever heard. I told him Jonas had been arrested too, and he lost it laughing. I called the impound lot. They confirmed they had my car and the fees. 200 TOWI, 200 TOW, 50-day storage. I said I'd come in 2 days. My brother came with me. Playlists, snacks, friends even chipped in gas money because this was worth it. We drove straight through, paid $250 at the lot, and the attendant handed me my keys and said this was a weird one. The car was parked between a doorless truck and a wrecked sedan. I unlocked it. All their stuff was inside. Rachel's duffel, Jonas's guitar and journal, their tent. I pulled it all out and handed it to my brother. He opened Jonas's journal and read a line out loud. "The universe speaks through those who listen." We both burst out laughing. The odometer read almost 2,000 miles. I started the car. Everything worked. On the drive back, Rachel called my brother. She'd blocked me, sobbing, saying I'd ruined her life. She'd been arrested and was put in handcuffs. Parents had to bail them out. My brother listened for a minute, then bluntly asked, "Did you ask permission to take the car?" She fell silent. He replied, "Seems like that's the whole point." She launched into accusations about me being controlling. He hung up. My brother and I were laughing so hard we nearly had to pull over. He told me the court hearing was the best afternoon he'd had in years. Back home, I'd already had the locks changed. Landlord did it same day. Rachel was never on the lease. Most of her stuff was already gone. I bagged what remained and donated or sold some items online and made about $200. Gas money for the Nevada trip. Fair trade, she used my car, I used some of her stuff. Court, sentence, and consequences in Nevada. Rachel and Jonas were advised by their public defenders to take plea deals because the facts were bad and fighting it would cost money. They pleaded guilty to unauthorized use of a vehicle. Each received 18 months probation, a $1,000 fine, and were ordered to split restitution for the impound fees. My brother went to the courthouse and texted updates. The judge asked Rachel why she thought it was appropriate to take someone's car with her ex for a month. Rachel reportedly said something about spiritual growth and self-discovery. The judge answered that personal journeys don't include other people's property and sentenced her accordingly. When Jonas went up, the judge asked why he thought getting into a stolen car was a good idea. Jonas claimed he didn't know it was stolen and that Rachel said she had permission. The judge said that's why you check the paperwork, especially when you go on a trip with someone else's girlfriend. Jonas tried to argue, but the judge shut him down. Both cried. Their parents were upset and present. After the hearing, my brother said it was the best afternoon he'd had in years. Rachel's mom called me furious, accusing me of ruining Rachel's life. I listened and explained calmly that Rachel took my car with her ex after I said no, refused to return it, and that I used the legal options available. She called me vindictive. I said I was practical. Weeks later, I heard from mutual friends that Rachel and Jonas briefly tried dating after everything. But it lasted only 2 weeks. The arrest ruined their spiritual connection, and Jonas's parents threatened to cut him off if he continued seeing the girl who got him arrested. He chose his parents. I gave away most of Rachel's leftover things and sold some items. Everything was handled fairly. Months later, I saw Jonas in a grocery store's produce aisle. He saw me, looked like he wanted to disappear, and practically ran out of the store. My brother was with me and joked, "That's the guy." I just nodded and kept shopping. A month later, Rachel had her own car and never asked to borrow mine again. She had no exes, and her spiritual journeys took a different, quieter form. People asked if I regretted their arrests. I said no. They took my car without permission, rode off with her ex, slept in the same tent, and refused to bring it back. That's not soul-searching. That's theft with terrible judgment. The arrests were just consequences. My car ended up where it belongs, in my parking spot, with my keys and no ex-boyfriend behind the wheel.